I still remember driving up the winding mountain road with my best friend Harper, the taillights of our rented SUV bobbing through the early November dusk. We were seniors at Willow Creek High, part of the choir ensemble chosen for the annual Adirondack Retreat, an optional trip designed to blend rehearsals with outdoor adventure. When we pulled onto the lodge's sprawling grounds, the air was crisp enough to turn your breath to mist, and the fir trees loomed dark against the pale sky. Harper and I had bunked together, sharing a top bunk in a small cabin at the edge of Lake Whisperwood, its surface so still it looked like polished glass. We unpacked our duffels and climbed up, maps and song sheets piled on the floor between us. But it wasn't long before the lure of the lake's ghostly calm dragged us outside. By moonlight, the lake took on an eerie glow. A thin mist curled just above the water, drifting toward the shore like fingers. We sat on the wooden dock, singing low harmonies of Silent Night, even though it was weeks before Christmas, because it felt right. Haunting, even. Behind us, the lodge's carriage lights blinked off one by one until darkness ruled. That's when Harper froze. "Did you see that?" she whispered. I followed her gaze to the opposite shore, where a lone figure stood under a lantern. A man, tall and solid, but utterly still. His back was to us, his shoulders rigid, as though he were carved from wood. I strained to make out details, but only caught the glint of the lantern's flame and the way it cast his long shadow across the water. "Probably a caretaker doing a late check," I said, though my voice shook. We watched him for several minutes, long enough to feel our hearts thudding. Then, as we gathered the courage to call out, the figure turned. His face was gaunt, eyes hollowed, and his mouth opened in a silent scream. He looked at us for a heartbeat before vanishing into the night, as if the mist swallowed him whole. Harper and I bolted back to the cabin and slammed the door. We peeled off our jackets, breath heaving, until I noticed the window overlooking the lake. We'd left it cracked open to hear the water lapping. Now, someone had pushed it wider. A single streak of mud smeared the wood. We locked every latch, dragged 2 chairs beneath the window, and sat in the dark until dawn. Morning brought explanations, staff insisting the caretaker's cabin burned down years ago, rumors of hikers lost in those woods, but none made us feel safe. That afternoon's rehearsal felt hollow. Every time we hit a high note, I half expected that gaunt face to peer in through the stained glass windows of the chapel. By the final night, our entire cohort agreed. We'd sleep with the lights on. I dreamt of that face floating over me, whispering the harmonies back, discordant and shrieking. When I was in 4th grade, my class took a trip to Ironwood Railroad Museum, a sprawling yard of rusted locomotives and crumbling coal cars an hour outside town. The sky was overcast, low clouds like a quilt about to weep. Inside the main depot, a brick building heavy with the scent of oil and old timber, display cases held railroad relics, lanterns, rusty spikes, faded conductor caps. I drifted behind my classmates, mesmerized by the way the light slanted through dusty windows, casting long shadows that moved with me. The museum guide encouraged us to split into small groups to explore hidden corners, but our teacher, Mr. Grayson, warned us not to stray beyond the main hall. Naturally, curiosity won. I slipped away into a narrow corridor marked "Employees Only," its door ajar. Heart pounding, I stepped through. The corridor smelled of grease and mildew, pipes groaned overhead. At the far end, a set of wooden stairs led down. Candlelit instead of electric, the light flickered on metal rails that vanished into darkness. I hesitated, but then recalled a rumor that an old signal operator once lived beneath the tracks, repairing switches by lantern light. Maybe I'd find something cool. I crept down, hand on the banister, until I reached a low-ceilinged basement room. In its center sat a motionless man in a conductor's uniform, pale skin, eyes closed, head tilted as though asleep. His lantern lay on the floor, still glowing. I gasped and stumbled back, but my foot hit something soft. I looked down. Another uniform, discarded, stained. A voice echoed from the darkness. "You shouldn't be here." Spinning, I saw him standing in the far corner, a gaunt figure, tunnel vision eyes fixing mine. He held a signal lamp, its red lens glowing like a bleeding eye. My breath caught as every history lesson about train accidents flashed through my mind. He stepped forward, lantern swinging, the red light dancing on his hollow cheeks. "Railroads aren't for wandering," he whispered, voice crackling like static. I bolted up the stairs, 2 at a time, pounding until I burst into the daylight and tripped over a rail tie. Mr. Grayson and the guide were waiting, faces pale. They ushered me back into the museum, where the conductor's uniform lay draped over an empty display case. No one had stored it there. No one had seen the man. That night, I lay in bed, replaying the echo of his words. I never told my parents or the school, but I still sleep with a nightlight, fearing that red glow might appear at my bedroom door. In college, I enrolled in Urban Legends and Forbidden Places, taught by Dr. Marquette, a stoic professor obsessed with New England's forgotten settlements. Our final project was a field trip to Limewood Sanitarium, a sprawling asylum abandoned since the 1930s, hidden in a pine forest 2 hours away. We gathered at dawn, loaded cameras and notepads into backpacks, and rode to the site in 2 vans. The drive was silent. Some students thumbed through dusty files, others stared out at the mist-shrouded hills. When we arrived, the main gate lay twisted on the ground, its iron bars mangled. We slipped through and found ourselves on a cobblestone courtyard overgrown with moss. The asylum's facade soared above us, broken windows like empty eye sockets, ivy crawling up curtained archways. Dr. Marquette divided us into pairs and handed out maps dotted with rumored hotspots: the surgical theater, the children's ward, the chapel crypt. My partner, Raj, and I chose the old morgue, deep in the west wing. The hallway was unnaturally cold, our breath visible in cloud puffs. We clicked on headlamps and advanced past rusted gurneys and shattered tiles. A door marked morgue creaked when pushed. Inside, steel tables lined the walls, and on one lay a wooden board like a makeshift coffin lid. I brushed debris off it, revealing a faded symbol carved into the grain, a circle bisected by a jagged line. Raj touched it and recoiled. Suddenly, a low thump echoed behind us. We spun around to see a door slamming shut at the far end of the hall. Our headlamps flickered. We raced to the door, yanked it open, and found ourselves in a small chapel. Stained glass windows, intact but smeared with grime, cast dull colors on pews rotting in rows. At the altar stood a figure in a tattered nurse's uniform, face obscured by shadow. 2 hollow eyes blinked, then a whispered chant rose, a child's lullaby warped and off-key. We stumbled backward, heart hammering, as she drifted forward, hands outstretched. Raj shouted, and we bolted through a side door into a spiral staircase. Behind us, the lullaby followed, echoing up the stone walls. We ran until we emerged on the roof under a slate sky, wind whipping around us. Raj turned to look back at an open skylight, where the nurse's silhouette stood, singing. We slid down the drainpipe to the courtyard, where the rest of the group huddled, pale and silent. Dr. Marquette met us at the gate, asking if we'd filmed anything unusual. The tapes only caught static, punctuated by that ragged lullaby. Some students insisted on leaving immediately. Others argued we'd discovered the heart of the asylum's mystery. But as we drove away, none of us spoke. Behind us, Limewood Sanitarium stood shrouded in mist, waiting. To this day, the echo of that lullaby haunts my dreams, and every time I hear the wind through pines, I swear I feel a lantern's red glow at my back. And every time I hear the wind through pines, I swear I feel a lantern's red glow at my back. Senior year rolled around, and I found myself drawn back to the foothills of Appalachia, this time not as part of an official trip, but on a dare. My best friend Mara, a fearless photographer with a taste for abandoned places, told me about the old coal miners' camp of Blackwood Hollow. It lay some 40 miles off the main highway, reachable only by a mile of overgrown logging roads. No record of guided tours existed. Any exploration would be entirely unregulated. We set out on a late September morning, Mara's Jeep kicking up dust as we plunged into the forest. The sun dripped through towering oaks and hickories, and the air smelled of damp earth and decaying leaves. Our playlist, a mix of folk ballads and ambient electronic noise, fizzled out as the signal disappeared. We laughed it off, chalking it up to remote country reception. After 20 minutes of jouncing down rutted dirt, we arrived at a clearing ringed by rusted machinery, a hulking steam engine frame, twisted rails half swallowed by moss, and the skeletons of bunkhouses where miners once slept. Mara clicked her camera, lens hunting the geometry of decay. I felt a thrill. This place had been forgotten for decades, and we were the first outsiders in years. She pointed the camera toward a narrow path leading into a thicket. "You see that?" she said, voice low. I squinted through the lens and noticed a squat stone structure hidden among vines. A sealed cistern or root cellar, maybe. Rusted iron bars covered its entrance, but loose enough to allow someone small to squeeze inside. "Think there's anything in there?" I asked. "Only one way to find out." She grinned, the excitement in her eyes infectious. We pried the bars apart, and a damp, fetid breeze wafted out. Covering my nose, I crouched and slipped in after her. Inside, our headlamps cut through the darkness, revealing slick stone walls and a stone slab in the center, cracked and mottled with black mold. On the slab lay a ragged bundle of cloth. Mara shone her light closer. The cloth, once white, now stained brown, stirred. We froze as it unfurled to reveal a human hand, skeletal, skin shrunken, fingernails chipped like tombic glass. "Oh, God," Mara whispered. "A body!" I stumbled back, heart hammering, but my lamp caught something else on the slab, carved initials, half obliterated by time. "EB 1923, I read. Beside it, a scrape of letters. "Don't let him—" And then it faded. We both stared at the warning. A sudden clatter echoed from the shaft above us, and dust rained down. We leapt to the entrance, but as we scrambled upward, a rumble shook the walls. Dirt and small stones tumbled around us, and the bundle slid off the slab, landing with a wet thud. I lurched forward to help Mara push the slab aside, but she yanked me back. "Don't touch it," she hissed. A low groaning rose from the bundle. A hand, paler than bone, slid free, curled into a claw. The scraping initials glowed faintly in our lamplight, words seeming to pulse. "Don't let him." We lost our nerve and scrambled up the bars. Outside, the forest floor felt too bright, too real. Mara snapped a photo of the entrance before heaving the bars back into place. We both heard it, the soft exhale of breath from behind the wall, like a sigh of relief or the awakening of something ancient and starving. "We need to go," I said. Without another word, we tumbled into the Jeep and screeched back down the logging road. Leaves lashed the windshield, and every shadow in the tree line seemed to follow us. We didn't stop until we hit pavement, both of us trembling. That winter, I returned home to Boston, but the memory of Blackwood Hollow followed me like an unwelcome echo. Each creak of the house at night made me jump. Shadows took on sinister shapes. I tried to bury myself in senior projects, college applications, AP exams, but my mind always wandered back to the cistern and its whispered warning. I began researching local archives, trying to find any record of a miner named E.B. in Blackwood Hollow circa 1923. I found only mention of a mine collapse in early October. 4 men trapped when the shaft flooded, bodies never recovered. Among the missing was a Edwin Blackwood. Family lore said his brother Thomas went mad searching for him, raving about shadows in the woods and voices calling his name. A week before graduation, Mara called. "I found something," she said, voice tight. We met at the public library downtown. She slid a brittle newspaper clipping across the table, a 1930s article about Thomas Blackwood arrested for trespassing at the abandoned mine. Charges were dropped, but the line caught my eye. He spoke of the one below, a nameless thing that stalked him in the dark, promising to bring Edwin back in exchange for something. The rest was smudged, unreadable. A chill settled in my chest. "Do you think he didn't trap Edwin but something else?" Mara nodded. "And whatever it is, it's still down there." I shivered. We agreed. We weren't going back. But the thought of that creature hovering beneath the bars haunted me. It whispered in dreams. Graduation came and went. Mara moved to New York for art school. I headed to college in Chicago. Life busied me, but each autumn I'd call her. We'd compare notes, strange lights in the attic, dreams of muffled screams, an itch behind the ear that felt like fingertips brushing. At first, we thought it was nerves, new environments. Then, Mara's roommate found muddy footprints circling her bed one morning, and the landlord in Chicago complained of footsteps pacing above me in the dorm at 3 a.m., though there was no one on the floor. One October night, 2 years after our Blackwood expedition, Mara emailed an urgent photograph of a plaster cast, her latest sculpture, of a gaunt man holding a lantern, eyes hollow. Under it, carved in fresh clay, the warning, "Don't let him." She wrote, "It came to me in a dream." My blood ran cold. I responded, "He's not in your studio. He's under my floorboards." I called my parents, who lived in our childhood home, and asked them to check the basement. That evening, my mother sent a photo. The floor beneath my old bedroom, where a section of hardwood had buckled, mud peeking out from the crack. She said they'd snapped it back into place. Thought it was a leak. I booked a flight immediately. Landing in Boston, I drove to the old house. The basement smelled of damp and mildew. I knelt before the buckled floor, ran my hand across the boards. Each creak felt like a heartbeat. I pried a loose plank. Below lay dark earth, and I could swear I heard it, a distant wet sigh, as if something exhaled in relief that I'd come. I pulled back more boards until the subfloor gave way. Mud fell into the basement cavity. There, in the dirt, was a flash of white. Bone. I froze, heart pounding. Then a whisper, so soft I thought it was the wind through the broken window. "Let me out." I slammed the boards back down, stair-stepped to the ground floor, and called Mara. She answered on the first ring, her voice hollow. "Get out," she whispered, before he exchanges. I didn't wait for explanation. I fled the house, drove until my headlights cut swaths through unfamiliar roads. Only when I reached Mara's Brooklyn loft did I feel safe, like I'd shaken the darkness enough to breathe. Now, 2 years after that frantic reunion, Mara and I sit across from each other in a small cafe in Providence. Between sips of coffee, we exchange stories of close calls. My dorm's basement floor giving way to reveal a hidden crawl space, her studio's wall cracking, revealing a dark void behind it. Each time the thing below stirs, as if hungry for trade. We've agreed. We need to finish this. The final expedition back to Blackwood Hollow to unearth whatever binds Edwin Blackwood's corpse and the nameless creature, and put an end to its promises. This time, we'll bring gear, shovels, headlamps, even a small team of friends. We'll record everything, document it, and seal the cistern properly. But as the cafe's door swings open, a gust of cold air follows an elderly man in a coal miner's cap, carrying a lantern, strange in midday. He pauses just inside, eyes scanning the room before settling on us. His face is gaunt, skin as pale as aged parchment. His lips part in a silent scream, and in his hollow gaze we see our own fear reflected. He raises the lantern, pointing it at us, and before the bell jingles as he exits, his whisper trails through the cafe like a draft. "Don't let him out!" Mara's fork clatters against her plate. I feel a tremor run through me. Outside, the sky has darkened, clouds roiling as though stirred by an unseen wind. Our coffee grows cold, and for the first time, I wonder if some things, some ancient bargains, should never be disturbed. But the next sunrise, we'll drive into the woods again, headlamps ready, shovels strapped to the roof rack. Because there are debts to settle, promises to unmake, and a danger that must be buried deep beneath iron and stone, where it can't creep into our homes, can't slip behind our windows, and can't whisper lies to lure new souls into the darkness. We leave the cafe under a sky-bruised purple as dusk settles. Mara slides behind the wheel of her Prius while I buckle in beside her. Neither of us speaks until we clear the city streets and the buildings thin out into quiet suburbs. Then, with a deliberate exhale, Mara breaks the silence. "Tomorrow," she says, "we head back at first light. No detours." I nod, checking the straps on the roof rack. 2 LED work lights, our backpacks, and 3 shovels. Long-handled, heavy-duty, bought new for this very purpose. Behind us, in the back seat, sit extra batteries for the headlamps, a small sledgehammer, and a coiled length of chain. We've packed enough radio batteries to last 2 days, and we each carry a tactical flashlight clipped to our belts. We park overnight at a friend's farmhouse on the edge of the national forest that contains Blackwood Hollow. The farmhouse is empty. Its owner, a college acquaintance, is out of town, but agreed we could crash on the living room couch. The floor squeaks beneath our boots as we arrange our gear under the yellow glare of a single bare bulb. Outside, the wind whispers through the pines. Somewhere down the road, a chain rattles. I lie awake on the couch, the overhead light swinging slightly in a draft. Every creak of the old house sets my heart racing. At 3 a.m., I step onto the porch and stare at the stars, trying to steady my breathing. In the distance, the silhouette of a lone pine tree stands motionless against the sky. My phone buzzes, a text from Mara. "You awake?" I reply. "Yeah." She writes back, "Me too. See you at 5. Morning comes on a faint orange glow. We meet on the porch, coffee cups in hand and eyes red with fatigue. Mara passes me a small digital recorder. In case the radios fail, she explains. We load into the Jeep, a dusty 2008 model that hums angrily to life, and point north. The logging road entrance to Blackwood Hollow looks unchanged. 2 fallen beams half buried in moss, the understory thicker than I remember. We pause at the threshold. Mara grips my arm. You ready? I swallow. Let's finish it. We drive slowly, headlights carving through shafts of mist. At points, the tires slip on wet leaves. After a mile, we see the clearing, the rusted locomotive frame, the twisted rails, the bunkhouse skeletons. The place holds its breath, waiting. Mara kills the engine. Silence falls. I step out, boots crunching on broken concrete. A thin mist curls around our ankles. I can almost hear the faint echo of hammer on rail, of men's voices long gone. We set out our tripods and radios, testing each device. Then we approach the cistern entrance, bars still intact, though rusted through in places. I lay my hand on the cold iron. My pulse hammers. Mara nods, kneels, and begins to pry a loose bar with a crowbar. It budges. A hiss of damp air sighs up from the depths. We both freeze. Then Mara forces the bar aside. A rectangular shaft yawns before us. I shine my light down. Stone walls coated in slick algae, the cracked central slab, and at its edge, the bundle of cloth, now immaculate white, as if newly washed. My breath catches. We exchange a look. No words. This is it. Mara lowers herself first, headlamp cutting a tunnel of light. I follow, one rung at a time, decades of rust crunching under my weight. When my boots hit the stone floor, I'm acutely aware of every muscle, taut, ready. The slab is even more visible now, the initials EB 1923 carved deeply into the stone, the words "Don't let him" aglow with phosphorescent mold. I snap a photo. The flash makes the mold flare like embers. Mara's light dances across the bundle. She kneels and gently lifts the cloth. Underneath lies nothing. No hand, no corpse, just an empty coil of cloth. My heart skips. I pat my pockets. Had I misremembered? The skull? The hand? I turn to Mara. Her face is pale. Did you see anything? I whisper. She shakes her head. He's gone. A low rumble vibrates through the slab. We step back. The slab shifts, first a hair's breadth, then slides toward us with a grinding screech. Beneath, a dark vault yawns, far deeper than before. The earth beyond the shaft dropped away into shadow. A fetid odor rises, like damp decay. A soft tapping echoes from the depths, as though nails rapping on wood. Our radios crackle with static, then coalesce into a low voice, indistinct at first, then a whisper so familiar it turns my blood to ice. Open it. Mara's jaw tightens. She raises her flashlight to the dark void. In its beam, I see eyes, pupils so black they swallow the light, floating 6 feet below us. They blink once, then vanish with a rush of wind that extinguishes our headlamps. Darkness. Total. My radio sputters, "Don't!" It cuts out. The only sound is my own ragged breathing. I fumble for a spare battery, click it into the headlamp. It flares back to life. The vault is empty again, but the tapping now echoes from all around. Stones rattling, water dripping, and that single voice, now urgent, angry. "Let me out!" Mara grabs my arm. We scramble up the ladder, boots slipping. Behind us, the vault lets out a hideous groan, as though protesting. She reaches the top, hauls herself out, and I follow, tumbling onto the ground. We drop the ladder and dash away from the shaft, as a thunderous roar shakes the clearing. Gravel and dust rain from the trees. When the roar stops, silence falls heavier than ever. The cistern stands open, its bars pried wide, A trap sprung. Blood pulses through my temples. Mara kneels by the shaft, eyes bright with fear and something else, determination. "We have to seal it," she says. Together we heft a shovel and begin to fill the shaft mouth with soil and rocks. Each scoop feels like throwing our hopes and fears into the void. The soil falls in with muffled thuds until only the rim remains. We shove the slab back into place, no creak this time. Then we swing the bars back over and wedge them with broken rocks. I turn away, chest heaving. "Is it done?" Mara stands, brushing dirt from her hands. "For now." Her voice is quiet but resolute. But some things stay buried only as long as people believe in them. The sky overhead is clear now, stars blinking as though nothing happened. We pack up quickly, the forest around us unnervingly still. As we load the jeep, I glance back once more at the cistern, sealed, yet somehow pulsing with promise. For the ride home, neither of us speaks. We carry the weight of what we've done, and what we've almost released. Later that night, back in our separate dorm rooms, Mara in Brooklyn, me in Chicago, we both leave our radios on low static. Because sometimes, in the whisper between stations, you can still hear it, the faint echo of a voice, pleading. And though we have buried him, we know that somewhere, in the dark, hungry earth, it waits for the next careless hand to pry it free.